Hi, everybody. This is Travis from The Berm Show. Lower 22 Vets is a social media platform exclusively for active duty and veterans. Connect, communicate, and network with your own. Sign up is free and easy with giveaways each month. Download on Apple Store or Google Play. All right, cool. Hey, everybody. This is Travis with The Berm Show. We're here today with Air Force veteran, podcast host of Course of Action, and author of Hear These Truths, Jeff Clark. How you doing, Jeff? And here's the book for anybody that's interested. I've
Yeah, there it
started
is.
reading this, Jeff. I'm not too far into it yet, but I'm loving it so far. So
Good, man. That's why I wrote it. I wrote it so people could enjoy it, man. So I appreciate you having me on. Appreciate you buying a copy. And this is awesome stuff, man. I love talking with other people. It's the best, hours of my week.
yeah, I agree. It's funny because I originally when I started the podcast, I was like, oh, maybe it'll be fun, just kind of shoot the shit with random people, and
Hmm.
ended up really becoming like a veteran, like directed type podcast. I'm kind of happy it has because there's been some really cool individuals I've talked to, such as yourself and many others so far. This is the 20th episode coming up, or this one will be. So, had a lot of interesting stories and backgrounds of people. I mean, just kind of like when you're in the military, you know how everybody's from all over the place.
Yep.
So it's kind of unique hearing people from Florida, California, somewhere in the East Coast. It's kind of cool hearing all these different perspectives and
Yeah.
experiences.
Well,
So
it's so cool that we can do this, virtually. That we can jump online and hit each other up on a Tuesday and say, "Hey, you down to do an hour or so on like Friday night or something?" And it's like you can make it happen that quick. And thanks to technology, you can jump on and do it that quick, and you can turn it around, edit it, and have it released on Monday. And it's just the power of technology when used correctly. Can really do some awesome things like build relationships and do stuff like this.
yeah, that's very true. Because I mean, even just thinking like maybe 10 years ago or so, when podcasts were kind of coming into their own, I guess some people were doing podcasts, not many. And it was a lot of in person, and some of them had like
Yeah,
little dens and stuff. It's like, man, this is no way this is going to ever succeed. These podcast things,
yeah,
but
it was a fad for sure, and then it just technology really ran with it. And I don't think if we wouldn't have had stuff like FaceTime on our
mhm.
phones, I don't think this virtual podcast type of stuff would happen. You had to be around people, you had to go to their house or their den or whatever rented studio they had and sit down and look at them in the face. And now it's like, hey, we can just jump online and hit record.
Yeah, it's funny. Like my last year in the Navy, my wife and I were, or she was my girlfriend at the time. My now wife, we're in two separate states. I ended up being stationed in Washington my last year. She was still in California, and the FaceTime was kind of like newer, so it was like we had that. And I remember telling my grandpa, I was like, man, this long distance stuff is tough. And he was in the Navy back in like the 60s. He's like, we're writing letters.
Yeah, hey, you
I
want to
was
hear it? Yeah,
like,
what are you talking about? It's
yeah.
hard.
He's like, I don't want to
Okay.
hear it.
Yeah, you can call each other every day, text message every day. We were writing letters that would take weeks at a time to get where they're at. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
I
it's like,
wouldn't said that to my grandpa either because he would
yeah, I didn't
he would
really
put me in
think
my
of that,
place and I'm like, you need to knock it off with that nonsense.
I didn't quite think that one out when I told him. I was like, man, he was in the Navy, he'll understand. But
No.
yeah, he was like, no. But yeah, so yeah, I'm happy to have you on. If you want to kind of tell everybody a little bit about yourself and you know, and yeah, a little introduction.
Sure, yeah. Jeff Clark, 12-year Air Force veteran. I was medically retired due to, back and shoulder injuries. Um, did 12 years Air Force, immediately went and worked back for the government as a civilian. I was eventually a civilian leader. 2019 Air Force Civilian Supervisor of the Year, which is kind of why I wrote my book, which I know we're gonna get into here in a little bit. So, yeah, man, I've been doing this for almost 20 years now, working in some capacity for the government in and out of uniform, and loving every minute of it. And I'm real thankful to be a veteran. I don't think I think the title is used often a lot, but I'm real thankful for it because it's given me a community that grows every single day, and it's just that's a huge blessing, man. Because I can reach out to guys like you who I don't know. You're a
Yeah.
total stranger to me, but we can connect online and then do this, and then next thing we know, we're sharing war stories. So it's awesome stuff. And again, thanks for having me, man.
No, no problem. Yeah, I'm happy to have you on. And one of those things that really stands out, what you said, is like being proud to be a veteran. I had talked to Danielle Guerrero on here before, maybe a month or two ago now. She said the same thing. She said, we got to start being proud of being veterans. And it's kind of always been, um, I think a lot of veterans maybe go through this too, where you kind of feel awkward about it. When
Hmm.
people come up to you and like, oh, hey, thank you for your service. It's always kind of like a weird thing. And you never really lead conversations with that when you're in interviews or anything. Like, I have it on my resume, sometimes I will
Sure.
never bring it up, but during interview process, he'll be like, "Oh, so you're in the military." It's like, "Oh, yeah, okay," but
Well, it's because we
it's
don't
true.
do it for the accolades. Most of us don't do it for the accolades, so we don't wear the title of veteran. We are veterans. We should be proud to be veterans, but we don't have the title hanging on our shirt. I'm a veteran. Thank me. You know, some people I think look at it a little differently than that, but for the most part, I think a lot of us just we don't wear the title. It's not an accolade. It's not something that we just flash around and want to show people. I just think it's just one of those things that we're proud of.
Yeah, exactly. And we should be, like you said, it's something we've
Yeah,
earned.
100%.
We've put a lot into however long your service is, 4 years, 12 years, retiree, 20, 30 years, be proud of it, own it, not many people do it. We're a very small percent of the population that is
Mhm.
willing to sign their life away at whatever age. I mean, majority is 17, 18, 19 years old, but there's folks that I'm sure you've even seen that when they're like 25, they're just like, man, I wasn't doing crap with my life. So that's why I decided to join. But
Yeah, and I've met some special ops guys that have more deployments than I do years wearing a uniform,
mhm,
and they were like, "I'm just as much a veteran as you are. Like, why are we comparing service?" And I would argue you've done a whole lot more than I have, but they look at it like so. If you're worried about competing with each other and who is more of a veteran than others, and I think the bottom line is we're all veterans. We all served in some capacity. So, don't look at it like, and I've had this discussion with a couple of veterans who are kind of having a hard time accepting the title. And it was like, hey, listen, man, you're just as much a veteran as anybody else is, so don't compare service and just be you, man. And let other veterans help you because nobody's out here comparing you to them.
that's very true. I mean, I've had those kind of conversations because I was kind of the same boat. I was like, I was in the Navy. I did a deployment. I never saw combat, or anything like that. So when I would talk to somebody that was in the Marines or something like that I came across that was, boots on the ground, I always felt like, man, yeah, but you did something way more different than I did. Like I wasn't getting shot at or anything, but one of my buddies told me, he's like, yeah, but you're on the flight deck, he's like, you're helping get aircraft to us and protect us. He's like, so he's like, whether you don't realize it or not, we're all part of the same team. We all have the same goal
Yeah.
in mind.
Yeah.
And it's true,
Everybody's experience was different. It doesn't mean it was more difficult or it's worth more. It just means everybody's experience was different. And, if you look at the bigger picture, and that's what I try to tell a lot of veterans who transition out, and I try to mentor. I was like, listen, everybody has a different experience. Um, and everybody in the bigger picture of things had a bigger mission. If you didn't do your job, then so and so couldn't do theirs, which means planes couldn't fly and bombs couldn't drop. Those
Mhm.
planes didn't fly and those bombs didn't drop. Then there's guys on the ground from another branch of service that would have been dead.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have had the support that they had. So look at the bigger picture. You play a key role. Your role might be 5 layers away from the bigger, actionable thing, but it didn't
Mhm.
happen if you didn't play your part.
Yeah, that's very true. And then part of what I kind of I was saying about this as you had brought this up too, talking about how not everybody joins for accolades and stuff like that. But we've all kind of came across that one person, I think, in our entire lives that boasts it like hardcore,
Hmm.
and that kind of
Yep.
made me think to some of your book. Actually, I know we want to dive into that a little bit later, but how the power and leadership, how they coincide, and how there's a lot of people take power or use the title as like a leader, a role, and say that, oh, now I'm powerful, I got all this responsibility, but then it's part of an ego thing too, where they're not really leading by example. They just know, okay, like I can imagine that veteran right now because I've bumped into them. They're like, oh, I did this and I was this, and I had all these people working for me, and civilians should be coming to me and like saluting me and stuff. It's like, well, that's a little extreme, dude. Like, you power tripped all the way through your military experience. Now you're power tripping into your civilian life or veteran life, and like that's not the most genuine thing to do, because I think that doesn't help at all, especially when you're coming across maybe a civilian that's never met a veteran before. So you're the first one they've ever met, and they're like, "Oh God, this probably every veteran is egotistical and full
Exactly.
of testosterone."
Well, and when you sit there and say, "I served in the military," you know what they all almost a lot of civilians, let's say um, a lot of civilians on just immediately appreciate you for that. They don't
Yeah.
care if you're in combat. They don't care how many deployments you went on. They don't care what your job was. I mean, for the longest, I was in the Air Force, so for the longest time out in public, I would get called an army guy because the world associates, you know, the military with soldiers, and Marines. Those are the two kind of biggest titles and generalized titles. They don't know the differences in camouflage. They don't know to look on the side of the shirt where it says what branch of service you are in. Like they don't know that. And it's not because they don't care. It's just they're not, they aren't one of us. They haven't been ingrained in that. So they don't know what to look for. They just see camouflage and see a service member and say, man, I appreciate that guy. So when and I'm not bashing anybody, but
Hmm.
I've met a couple of veterans that were like that too. They're like, dude, I did 15 combat tours. I'm a big friggin' deal. It's like, well, no, you need to humble yourself, man. Like, you need to humble yourself because I'm not saying you're not a big deal, but when you walk outside the gates and you're not wearing camouflage anymore, nobody gives a shit. I mean,
and
there's
that
people who
is
just don't care.
and that is very freaking true. Like, because I was of the mindset when I was getting out, I was like, man, I'm gonna get a job like ASAP. Everybody's gonna be like, oh man, this guy was in the military. Ew, man, they don't care.
No.
They really don't. And it's like, I wish I would have been a little bit more prepared in that sense, because I kind of had that same mindset. Like, man, people are gonna be like, when I first got out, with that humbling experience where this kid, it's been like 5 months, I'm still trying to find a job. This is crazy. Where, in the Navy or any branch of military, if you have your your division or what your platoon, whatever it is, your squad, and the respect is earned and it's obvious who has
Yeah.
it and stuff. So when you leave, it's gone. Like that was like the first dose of reality I think I had, and it was kind of nice having that, because I mean, definitely humbled me, and um, I think a lot of
Same.
people go through that experience. I was like, holy crap! But
Yeah, they
uh,
do because they don't know they don't have those expectations. Expectation management hasn't been done because, and again, going back to it, it's not that people don't care. It's just that they don't understand, and
mhm.
they're not going to understand the significance of 15 combat deployments, or what it was like because you were security forces or whatever. And I was Navy intel. Okay, I mean, I know what Navy intel is from the Mission Impossible movies. I mean, that I'm not saying that the public is ignorant, but they only know what they know,
Yeah.
and they only know sometimes what the news and the media and Hollywood tells them. So the truth is a little different. Sometimes it's very far from the truth what they know. So you kind of have to humble yourself in the fact that they're not just going to assume and understand because the guy sitting next to you, left and right of you, a couple of days ago, he was wearing the same uniform as you, so he understands.
Hmm.
Civilians working at the quick shop or working at Amazon, they don't get it. That's why there's been such a focus in companies to build military divisions of things. They want veterans in there and they want the veteran culture and environment ingrained in their company. So it's a easier transition. They can hire veterans, they can move right in, they can feel welcome, and it's different than just opening up and slapping a name tag on and saying, "Hey, you're Jeff today. You're not Sergeant Clark anymore. You're just Jeff today." That's a culture shock to us, and it's a hard thing to do to transition. And that's why companies like Amazon and lots of other ones are doing a whole military divisions and embracing that.
Do you think part of that is for like companies doing that? Um, Maybe around like the idea they're thinking, hey, if I can get 12 veterans in here, or even just say they can get one, I can get one veteran, fresh out of the military. Let's go that route. Fresh out of the military, one veteran that they're going to work harder than maybe three kids right out of college or three kids that are 18, 19 years old. Do you think that's part of their mindset as well? As like, I want to utilize some of this and like this programming that they've experienced and where they're very, punctual. They're going to show, if I say show up at 6 o'clock in the morning, they're going to show up at 5:45. If I tell them they get off at 3, they're going to maybe stay till 4 o'clock. Like they're going to always go the extra mile.
I
Not
think
that
they're
every veteran
definitely
does that, but
Yeah, I think they're definitely looking to capture skill sets and traits of military members that can't be taught to regular employees. And I don't say that in a negative way, but
yeah,
regular employees don't go to basic training. They don't wear a uniform and learn how to polish boots. Well, I guess they don't do that anymore, but we did.
yeah,
We learned how to polish boots, and I polished boots for hours, and there's no reason for it other than my boots had to be polished. So we
mhm,
understand on a different level of why doing the little things matters. Whereas you can't necessarily teach or train that in a work environment. I mean, you can and you can't. We had it forced upon us. It was a way of life. So I think what a lot of companies are trying to do is trying to capture that and kind of build it into their companies and using veterans to help kind of make that movement. And then on the flip side of it, they're also doing the helping hand of, we a long time ago when we fought wars and people would come home from wars, the community embraced them and said, "Oh, you're back in the community again." And I think we've when Iraq and Afghanistan were big, and we were constantly sending service members home, and then they were either redeploying or they were getting out, and we just kind of had this constant cycle. We were finding a lot of veterans were walking out into the community and not knowing what to do. The community wasn't embracing them back in, and that's a difficult thing. But I think as a nation, we've done a good job so far of calling on the community and saying we need you to do more. And I think that's a big reason why a lot of companies, big and small, are trying to focus on bringing that element back into their companies, and they're trying to help with the military transition, and it benefits them as well to try to bring in those traits and create that culture that works.
yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And one of the things I was just talking about the other day actually was um, like how when veterans do transition, I'm not going to speak for all of them, but there is this. I'd say probably most veterans go through this, where it is kind of awkward because you're so disciplined and not necessarily goal oriented, but motivated, and maybe you are goal oriented to get rank and all this stuff and certain qualifications. So when you do get out, I've one of the things I thought was weird. I was saying about this the other day when I was in this conversation. It's kind of weird when you get out, you kind of lose that for some reason. I think a lot of veterans all of a sudden, when they are active military members to veteran transition, they kind of lose that for some reason. I don't know what happens during that span of okay, you're walking out the gates, but all those aspirations, that dedication, that discipline, kind of falls away. And I'm not sure if it's because you have everything kind of set up for you every single day, so it's easy to be disciplined in those specific tasks. Like hey, 6 a.m.'s muster, 11 a.m.'s chow. In between that, I don't know, you're doing whatever
Work,
your
yeah,
your
work.
rate is. You're MOS. Yeah, you're
Yeah,
working.
you're
You
working.
know, so when you get out, it's like, oh man, I don't have any of that structure. It's hard to be disciplined with no structure. Maybe that's what it
I
is. But
think, I think, yeah, I would agree. I think a lot of it is though that is a different. What I've learned, I'll say this: what I've learned is military service is a different level of stress and standards that um, we get accustomed to. It's not the norm. So when you get out and you take off the uniform, a weight lifts off your shoulders. Some of us let it stay and continue that discipline, and others, as a way of lifting that stress, they let those things go. And I've met people who have done that, and they're like, dude, I can't get up anymore. And it's like, well, you would think, what's your problem, dude? You're getting up at 5 o'clock, and you're PTing from 5:30 to 7:30. You're at work at 8. Like, what's the problem? That's not the problem. It's not that they're incapable of it. It's they've been doing it, and now they don't have to. So it's become an option, and that's a stress. That's a stressor that is no longer mandatory. We talk about mandatory fun, and then we joke around with it all the time. And um, I think in a way, it's a stress that's not required anymore. It's no longer has a certified place in your life. So, I did the same thing. I thought, oh man, when I retire, I'm going to be in the gym 3, 4 times a week. I'm not going to slide, and I don't have to focus on my PT test anymore. So I can work out how I want to. I'm not going to run another day in my life
Oh yeah.
because I don't have to. And I hate running, so I'm going to lift weights. I'm going to bulk up. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And I'm never going to touch a treadmill or a track ever. I didn't do none of that shit. Let me just I'll be straight with you.
Oh yeah.
I did not. The first 90 days, I didn't even look at a gym, and it wasn't that I didn't want to. It's just that stress of having to do it, that mandatory fun thing, I didn't have to do it anymore. And that was like something that I let go, again, not because I wanted to, but because it felt good to do it. But that's when you have to rein yourself back in and be like, well, now I can do it for my health. I don't have to do it to pass the test or to be ready to deploy. I can do it for my health, and I need to do it. I need to do it. I mean, I'm being honest with you. I'm being
Mhm.
fully transparent. I need to be back in the gym.
Yeah. I've never thought of it from that sense. I mean, because I was the same way as yourself. I remember waking up the next day and I was just like, wow. I didn't even have an alarm or nothing. I just woke up. I was like, I don't
Right?
gotta go shave. I don't gotta
Yeah.
I don't gotta do
All those
nothing.
mandatory things, you don't have to do it anymore. And it
It was
feels great.
Yeah, I woke up and played I think it was Madden or whatever. I was like, man, I'm playing a freaking video game like 8 in the morning.
Mhm.
Nobody's here. My girlfriend, my now wife, was she was going to college at that time, so I was like, she's in class. I'm just here in a studio apartment, but nobody told me what to do, and it's like the weirdest. That's the weirdest day ever. I'm
Yeah.
sure for almost every veteran's the next day because it's such a like looking back on it's kind of like a eerie feeling. Like
Mhm.
now thinking about it, it's like man, we're kind of alone. Like everything when you wake up in the Navy, we had 3 racks high, so and across you have another 3, so it's like man, you always just have somebody around. You're waking up, somebody's waking you up. There's always noise. Waking up to dead quiet is so weird. It's like one of the weirdest feelings.
Yeah,
That's
because we're so
been
used to chaos.
yeah,
And chaos goes away and they're like, what is this? For me, it was clothes.
hmm
Like, I gotta wear combat boots and camouflage, same thing every single day, 5, 6, 7 days out of the week. Never changed. Ever. Ceremony I had to wear dress blues. Other than that, I hung in the closet and in the dress bag. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So it was going back to work and saying, "Oh, I wear polo and jeans, or wear polo and like slacks. Like, what colors do I wear? What do other people wear? Like, am I wearing what they wear? Are they going to judge me because of it? Because a couple weeks ago I wore camouflage. So did everybody else around me. you know, as long as you wear camouflage that day, nobody questioned it.
You
So
know what?
now,
I wonder if this is weird. Do you still do this? Because I'm not sure how it is in other branches, but when I put my belt on, that gig line still needs to be like on
oh,
point.
dude, 1000%.
to
1000%. It drives
this
me
day,
absolutely
I'm still like that.
wrinkles in my pants and my belt.
It's the
It drives
weirdest
me
thing.
nuts.
You would think it's something that I never really cared about when you're in. It's just a habit. But now when I do it,
Mhm.
I'm like, look in the mirror. I'm like, all right, yeah, we look good. We're good to go.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like one of
Presentation
those
for
weird
me is
things.
a big deal. I don't obviously don't shave, I have a beard, but, if my hair's touching my ears, I don't have
Oh
a
yeah,
lot of hair, I'm pretty bald, but, like, if the hair, on my sideburns is touching my ears, if the thing gets too squirrely and starts to look, too caveman like, I gotta be nice and trimmed. I still shave, a little bit, like stuff like that sticks with me. And my appearance matters, and the military taught me that because trust me, before I joined the military, my appearance was not a big deal to me. It wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, the shaving thing, the only time I really shave now, like I'll shave for interviews and stuff like that. And I'm not sure if times have changed or something because my last job process during the interviews, they're like, "Oh, why are you clean shaven?" I'm like, "Oh, I don't know. I thought that's just what you did." I was like, "I don't know." I was like,
Yeah.
"Is that weird?" I was like, I mean, I could grow my beard back." I was like, "Shoot, I'll do that."
Yeah,
But
no, I see it all the time now. Like when even hiring for the government, people used to come and dressed in a suit or really nice dress, or for ladies would wear like a pantsuit type of thing. No, not anymore. They'll come in with freaking nose piercings and lip
oh
piercing and
wow.
tattoos hanging out and all that stuff. Like I think it's just more acceptable
Hmm.
for people to be who they are now, as opposed to, because I think of it like this. I would rather you come dressed as what I should expect to see you look like the majority of the time when you work for me, as opposed to you come and you come to the interview in a suit and tie, clean shaven, looking sharp. But on Monday, when you show up for work for the first day, you come in a polo shirt and khakis. Like, I'm like, what happened to the suit, man? Like, you just did that to impress me. Like, I'd rather you show me you, show me who you really are. You know, I can fix as an employer, as a supervisor. If you underdress, I can fix that.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? I can say, hey, we wear polos or long sleeves, stuff like that. I can tell you to dress attire, and I can help you fix that. Even if it's pulling money out of my own wallet and helping you out.
Hmm.
As a supervisor, as a leader, as somebody who cares for people, I can fix that. I can't fix an attitude adjustment when they just don't care. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I would rather bring the real you to an interview and show me who you really are. And if you've got tattoos, you got two sleeves, that's fine. You know, honestly, as a someone who does a lot of hiring, I try not to do in-person interviews. I try to do it over the phone because then I can't see you. I cannot
Oh,
pass any judgment. The people who, are on a hiring panel with me can't pass any judgment based on your looks. We know what's on paper and we know the answers that you say to us. And that's the real meaning of hiring people, you
that's
know?
a different way than majority of people do it. Yeah, because I'm that same person that shows up with the tie because I have
Oh,
tattoos.
me too.
It's like, man, I don't want them to be like, "Oh, this guy got tattoos, so we're not hiring him."
No.
But yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I like that perspective of it more. Um, just hey, this is who you are. That's who I want
Yeah.
or don't want. Um,
Yeah.
and that's how it should be. Um,
Absolutely.
so one of the things I wanted to ask you too, because you kind of brought this up that you were medically discharged from the Air Force after 12 years. So I
Yeah.
kind of want to dive in a little bit into your experiences while you're in the Air Force, and what led you to ultimately get to that point. Because I remember reading in the beginning of your book, you're you're saying your chief kind of gave you the blunt, honest truth about um, I think it was like making rank and your size and stuff like that. You're like, well, I'm a big guy, normal, just naturally. So, kind of curious on what happened in your 12-year career there.
Yeah, so I'm 6'2", I hovered around 225, 230 for most of my career. And that
Oh,
was
dang.
I'm a bigger guy. Yeah. So I had to watch my weight really, really closely. And that was something that my chief, who's an E9 in the Air Force, my chief pulled me aside when I was a young airman. I think I was a E2, E3 maybe.
Hmm.
And he pulled me aside and said, I know you're a big guy. I know you're probably going to have to work 5 times harder than a lot of people who can just naturally show up in PT. He's like, but he kind of just said, You're going to have to, and you're going to have to work really damn hard because you need to, because you have a bright future ahead of you." And he kind of just wanted to, he felt like he owed me that conversation because he saw something in me and that he didn't want me to get in my own way. And I'm super thankful for that because he also told me that day, he's like, you can never forget where you came from. And he's like, I always keep the first 2 stripes that I earned in the Air Force, I keep them in the top drawer of my desk. So every time I pull out a pen to get a pen or something like that, I see it. I never forget where I came from. So as a chief, I don't walk around just talking to other chiefs. My job is airman. My job is you. I got to raise the next, you know, era of leaders. And if I'm not passing down things and I'm not helping you see that, because it's hard to see in year 1 and 2 what you're going to potentially be in year 20, 23, 25. Like, a lot of people don't come in and say, I'm going to be a chief, I'm going to be a command chief, I'm going to be the senior leader over thousands of people. Some people just don't see that, or they don't see the road that it takes to get there. But you need to see it early so you can kind of have your eyes on it to see what it's really going to take. And it's a grind. You want to get to where you make E9. At least in the Air Force, you're putting in probably at the minimum 15 to 17 years before you have a shot at that. So most of them are closer to 20, and they wear the stripes, the chief stripes for well over 20 years. That's a significant portion of your life, if not more than half of it.
Mhm.
So when he told me that day, it really stuck with me. And that's something I kind of carried with me throughout my career. And even on my last day on active duty, I was still telling, some of the younger airmen before I left, I said, you're next. I might be leaving only as an E5, but just understand that I'm leaving. People leave every day. We need good leaders to replace us as we leave, and we need you to be better, because the only way the service is going to grow is if we constantly have a turnover of talent, and we constantly have talent coming in. So um, I retired at 12 years. I was medically retired. So I met a med board like a lot of other people have met. And my case was a little different because my doctors had tried to hide me for like 3 years. I had bad back problems that they knew that they
Wow.
messed up. So the Air Force messed it up. Um, I had a back injury, and for a year, I was begging to have an MRI done. Like, I was telling them, my back is messed up. I can't run. I can't sleep. I'm in constant pain. And it took a year before I was able to get an MRI. And by
Wow.
then, a lot of it had healed. So my doctor's looking at this, and he's like, I read the report from the radiologist, and he said, yeah, it looks like there's some things wrong in there. But the key point is, he can see signs of an old injury. Like, there's been previous fractures in the vertebrae and in, the discs that go in between each vertebrae. He's like, he can see it. And that was the issue, was that it was broken, and they screwed it up and dropped the ball. So he was like, you need to get your affairs in the row, because as soon as this is found by the medical, review people, I don't know what they're called anymore, but
Yeah.
he was like, they're going to come after you. You're going to be reviewed. You're going to get med boarded. He's like, this is just how it is. He's like, I can help you out for a couple of years, but you're going to have to kind of play ball and do some things and physical therapy and all that. And we're going to have to try to take it slow. But he was like, get your affairs in order, because it's coming. And he's right. It did. I think it took almost 3 years before they finally got me. And then they med
Wow.
boarded me. And I don't know how it is in other services, but in the Air Force, you go through a lot of the medical board process, and then they give you a decision. And then at that point in time, you can accept the decision, or you can basically deny it. And if you deny it, then you basically have two options. One, you can kind of start the process over and try to fight, but understand that, they're not going to waste a lot of time on you. Or two, you can basically lawyer up, and you
Oh,
can get a military lawyer or you can get a civilian lawyer. And I got a military lawyer, and we basically went to it's kind of like court. It's like military court for these special cases. And went down and met with him. I told him the thing. He looked through my medical record and was like, dude, they're trying to kick you out for your back, but they haven't looked at the shoulders that they messed up, the knees and ankle problems that you've had because of all the cargo and stuff you've moved around. He's like, they're not even looking at that. So
mhm.
he's like, oh man, this is going to go. And we practiced and we got ready and all that. And court was the next morning. And he said, just come in here 30 minutes early. We'll rehash. And then when I went in there that next morning, he was just sitting there. He's like, all right, man, let's sign some papers to get you out of here. And I was like, well, what the heck happened, man? Like, I'm ready for court. I'm ready to stand next to you in front of those sixes that are in there and plead my case, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and he's like, oh no, you're going home, man. You're retired. They retired you. They took one look at your record this morning and they called me personally on the phone and said, "Nah, we're not wasting our time with this. We
Wow.
have done this guy wrong medically, and we've disqualified him from service because of our own misgivings, you know." So they just said, "Retired, boom, done." So I
Holy
was in there in
crap.
15 minutes.
15 years or 12 years and then 15 minutes. That's
Yeah,
all it took.
15 minutes basically decided my fate.
Holy crap. I mean, that's
Yeah.
so is there when they do that process and like your lawyer was saying, oh man, you had all these injuries that they've kind of neglected or glossed over. Is there like any compensation that comes with that, or is that just like, oh yeah, we did that, sorry, or we didn't acknowledge it?
So the way the law is written right now, you have to do 20 years in order to be retired and receive retirement pay.
Mm,
So I don't receive retirement pay because I didn't hit 20. But all that whole medical record I can take to the VA, and as a part of the medical board process, they make you do a lot of VA stuff before you get out. That way you're not starting from square one. It's a congressional mandate that you do like a certain amount of it. So you have a rating, like a tentative rating from the VA. When you get out, you know that already. But then you go back and you follow up with them on all these other little things, and that's when you start, stacking it up. So I think when I left, I think I was 70% when I left and I walked out the door. And then I went back and I got some help and I got from 70, I think I got to 90. And then just last year, I got up to 100.
of disability pay.
Yeah.
Wow, holy crap. See, uh, man, when I had Ro Gonzalez on, he had brought up something that I think they kind of do something like this, but when you're like in taps and stuff like that, and you're getting out, they do like I think it's on base, but they do like your hearing test. They kind of do like a quick little physical. But I think he had mentioned that it should be like a third party, a civilian type way to go because there's so many folks that don't get any disability pay that probably deserve some or need some. I'm probably one of those folks. I have no claim nothing, and I'm pretty much deaf in my right ear at this point. Or at least my wife would say that. Um, but I wish there was more like of a direction that way. You're knocking out while you're transitioning out. Like okay, these things are kind of coming to light. You know, let's do this now. I mean, for
Yeah.
you at least, it sucks that that's the reason why you got that type of or you got that disability pays because they kind of screwed you over for so many years. But so oh, go ahead. Sorry.
So, and this is what I would say to any veteran or potential, veteran that's about to get out of the military if they're listening. Um, Listen, I love the military. I love the Air Force. I really do. But you're a number. So the minute you start to walk out the door, say you're going to walk out the door, they lose interest in you, and that's just the bottom line. Nobody from the Air Force called me after I left that day and checked in and said, "Hey, how you doing? How's transition going?" They don't do that.
Yep.
I mean, the military just doesn't do that. I think they're getting programs online now, where that's a different story, but they still don't do it that well. It's still a massive work in progress. But you reach out to other veterans. Do not be afraid to. I have met so many fellow veterans that were just like, "Hey, you're getting out? What do you need? Have you heard of this? Have you heard of that?" And they didn't say, how long were you in? What did you do? Let me compare myself to you. No,
Hmm.
it wasn't. What do you need? I can help. I have connections. What kind of job are you looking for? Are you into IT stuff? Like that was the case. So then you could, yeah, actually, I need help with my VA stuff. That's what I need help with. Okay, I'm gonna hook you up with so and so because I know them. You're going to tell them Jeff Clark sent you, and then he's going to help you out because he helped me out, you know.
Hmm.
And that was the thing. So you're not alone. Don't walk out the door, take the uniform off, and then think you're alone because you're not. The military is going to leave you alone because you're not theirs anymore.
Yep.
You got to rely on your community of veterans because there's thousands of people ready to help you. All you have to do is ask.
That's probably major mistake I think almost every veteran possibly makes when they're getting out. I'm not sure how it is for folks today, but I got out. This is gonna be my 11th year this December coming up, being out of the military. I know when I got out, I didn't do any of that. Even when I'd bump into a veteran, that I never like, hey, what are you doing? Like,
Yeah.
do you need help, or how's your transition going? How's your life going? Um, and I'm not sure if it was kind of like the thing we are talking about in the very beginning. It's like being proud of being a veteran. That's kind of like maybe that's part of it. Also, it's like I don't want to associate with the military right now.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of trying to figure things out. It's
Sure.
like, man, if in hindsight, if you were to ever go back in time, that'd be the wiser decision to do of the options. Like you bump into a veteran in college, you're like, hey, so what are you doing? What programs are you in? Are you in any? Are there classes that you're in that maybe I can help you with? Vice versa, stuff like that. Building that community, and I think as technology has grown, like we were saying, where you have these like what we're doing, virtual conversations, makes it a lot easier. And just from like this year of doing this podcast, I think 6 or 7 months in, um, just seeing how many different veterans are out there, different programs, different podcasts. It's kind of nice. It's like
Yeah.
it's reassuring that to me, at least. It's like, hey, we're doing pretty good at this. Where it's not all bad. We think it's always all bad, and I know that's how I was. My mind was always like, oh my god, veterans just have it harder than anybody, but we're persevering right now, from what I can tell. Or
Yeah.
talking to folks like yourself, we're starting to really become more outspoken, grabbing the bull by the horns, taking care of, like, really directing our own lives in a
Yeah.
positive manner for the first time
There's
as a
more
whole.
veteran entrepreneurs now than there ever has been,
Hmm.
or veteran small business owners than there ever has been. I mean, those are facts
Hmm.
because we're going out there and we're using the things that the drive and all those tools and traits that we were taught in the military. We're going out there and we're doing bold things. We're opening up companies. We're running businesses. We're we're game changers, and nobody knows veterans better than veterans. That's just the bottom line. So, and I wish I would have understood that when I walked out because I left and I thought, ugh, I'm going to figure this out on my own. And that was the stupidest thing I could have ever thought because there was thousands of people just waiting. I had to go find them and say, I need help. I'm trying to get it back into business. I'm trying to get into this or that. And, you know, what can you do to help me? Can you look at my resume? Oh yeah, I know a resume writer. I'll set you up with them. I didn't do any of that. And that's why now when I meet people, I say, dude, what do you need?
Yeah.
Seriously, give me the list. And then all I need you to do is answer your damn phone or your email. I'll take it from here, but you just got to be ready to be helped. And I think that's a tough thing for a lot of people to do. And I'm speaking from previous experience as well, but nobody knows veterans better than veterans. That's why there's so many veteran ran companies and people out there helping with the transition that are veterans. Veterans are running those programs because they know it better than anybody else does and they know what it takes. And that's really, really important when it comes to your transition is to reach out and get help from the people who know it best.
Yeah, I'd even say if you're going to get out, because like as you get closer, for like myself, I knew that date's coming up.
Yeah.
Um, I would even start even then. If you know anybody that was in the military, or some supervisors. I had one first class pay officer. He's is that an E6 or E7? I can't remember now. Um, who was pretty straight up with me. He was just like, "Hey, it's gonna be hard when you get out." I kind of brushed him off, and I think when I did that, and he was a really good friend of mine, good mentor. And when I did that thing, he kind of said, "Well, okay, he's not going to listen to me." So I didn't really talk to him like the last month or 2 months I was in.
Yeah.
Kind of, I shot myself in the foot. And I mean, I think I was 21 or 22. I should have been more open instead of so naive and been like, "Oh, I got it figured out. I'm winging it. I'm winging life when I get out." It's stupid to do that. It's. I mean, I set myself up for failure, and I'm sure a lot of veterans do
Hmm.
that in that part, in that transition, the early transition, because you're still in, but you're planning on it and not saving money, not really job hunting. Even I didn't start job hunting until I got out, which was stupid. And that was
Yeah,
another dumb thing to do.
pretty much me too.
Um, it's like and it just opens up doors for bad things that happen, bad thoughts that happen. Yeah, so if any veteran or person that's about a military member that's in that stage of their service, I would start doing that. Like Jeff was saying too, really reach out. There's so many organizations and charity groups and everything that will be more than happy to
Oh yeah.
teach you the ropes and give you the ins and outs.
Yeah, and the nonprofits, like Vets to Industry, shout out to
Mhm.
Brian Arrington and Vets to Industry. They do business with other veteran nonprofits, and they're molding the way they do business as a nonprofit so that they can work directly with other nonprofits that focus in a certain area of things. So they can literally be like, hey, we're going to help you with this, and then we're going to pass you off to so and so because
Wow.
so and so is doing this. We're going to get your resume ready and all this stuff, and we're going to get you on the networking events and all that. And then we're going to pass you off to so and so because they're doing things in the IT world or whatever it may be. So veteran nonprofits are starting to work with each other and be maximum on the efficiency as opposed to a bunch of individuals trying to do the same thing. They're finally getting it. And if you don't know about Veterati as a veteran, you should be on Veterati because Veterati is like a social networking platform exclusively for veterans where you can call and book a time to go talk to on virtually like this or on the phone with another veteran, and you can get free mentoring. It's
Oh
totally
wow.
free.
See, I didn't
Totally
even know that
free.
was a thing. I didn't even
Yeah.
know that was wow.
Yeah, it's called Veterati. It's really cool, man, because you can go on there and search people. Like if you're into the IT world, or maybe you want to go into business management, you can go on there and search people who specialize in that, and then you can request time to chat with them. And then they're opening up their time to say, "What do you need? What do you want to talk about? What do you need help with?" And it's veterans giving back to other veterans, and it's free. I mean, why wouldn't you use it? I've used it and I didn't need it. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? Like I signed up for it just because, and then I signed up as a mentor so people could call me just so I
Yeah.
can help. So don't I guess the bottom line is don't be afraid to ask for help because it's there.
Yeah, and exactly. Even in colleges, I noticed that when I was in college, I went to community college and I ended up going to university. And the same thing. They both have had veteran centers and stuff like that, and some of them were ran by like former chiefs or
They're there for a
someone even.
reason.
Yeah, and that's like I said, I'm so like weird about hanging out with other veterans and stuff like that. I wish I would have been more engaged in that. Um, because it's so useful. And then I was just thinking back to even my first job when I got out of the military, and this guy, he was a veteran as well, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm going to college and doing all this and that," and he's like, "Man, once I'm done with this, like, he's like, I just know I'm going to really take off." And I never sought to build a relationship with that. I was like, "Oh, that's cool. All right,"
Yeah.
it's stupid things like that, and it's like I wish I would have had a more like a mentor-ish type deal because I think that's what maybe skewed or helped or kind of made it things tough for me. I'm sure it does for a lot of veterans that do like 4 years, maybe especially even or a shorter time, is because you have mentors. You never really become a mentor per se. You
Hmm.
don't become a E5, E6, E7, where
Yeah.
you're leading a vast majority of people. Maybe you'll have like a little crew to yourself or something, but when you get out and you don't have that mentorship right away, you're kind of like, oh,
Yeah.
I have nobody to help me or that's going out of the way to help me. So I don't really know how to navigate these waters too well.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I wish I would have done a little bit more
Yeah.
stuff
Same.
or been more engaged.
I didn't realize it until several years down the road, and I thought, man, I missed out.
But that's kind of the good thing about it now, right? Though, so we can look back.
Oh yeah.
Um, and like you said, now you're mentoring other veterans and
Yep.
stuff like that. Because how many veterans have you seen now? How long have you been mentoring and other veterans?
Um, Probably like the last 2 years is when I really started realizing, oh my God, like there's so much out there. And
Mhm.
then I started learning about programs and things. Um, and then it was like, okay, Why don't people know about this? And that's when I just said, okay, as I learn stuff, I'm going to pass it along. And LinkedIn is a big platform too of just, of collaborating with people. And so then I got to know other veterans, or I got to know, job employment people and coaches. And it was like, hey, if you have veterans who need help and you can't answer those questions, send them my way. And if I can't answer it, I'm going to send them to someone else. I'm going to put them in contact with somebody. And the beautiful thing about LinkedIn was that you can say, hey, go talk to Travis, go get a friend request into him and tell him Jeff Clark wants to connect you, or you can even send a message in there to two people
Yeah.
and say, hey, Travis, just wanted to introduce you to so and so. He's looking for this. He needs help in that. Appreciate it, brother. And I mean, you've made that connection just that quickly. And that's why, I really kind of started getting into it more because I work for the government. I'm a federal employee, my job's pretty secure for the most part. I haven't had to do a lot of job searching since I've gotten out, since I went back to work for the government. But that doesn't mean I still can't be helpful,
Mhm.
So I've really tried to use some of my extra time to do that and help out. And besides, if you're going to sit there and scroll on social media all day, you might as well scroll on something useful like LinkedIn and help other people out. Because scrolling on Facebook and Instagram for hours at a time is just such mindless,
Oh yeah.
mind-numbing waste of time.
Yeah, you get caught in one of those stupid videos, and then you're just swiping through a whole bunch of
Oh
crap, and
yeah.
then
I
after
deleted
you've all
TikTok for that exact same reason. I was just watching stupid video after stupid video for hours at a time. And I thought, I haven't gotten anything done today.
yeah, I did the same thing. I had a TikTok. One of my Navy buddies told me to get it. He's like, "How come you don't have one?" And I got it. I was like, "Dude, I can't sleep. Like, I'm just watching the stupidest shit for like 30 minutes."
Yes. Yes.
Like, then it's like 10 o'clock, 10:30 at night. I'm like, "Oh crap! I gotta like wake up in a few hours. What am I doing?"
Yeah. Yep. I got rid of it just for that reason, man. Cause I was like, oh, I'm just wasting so much time of my life
Mhm.
to watch 15-second videos of people, riding in a shopping cart and flying over a curb, like just the dumbest stuff. So I said, okay, I gotta stop this.
I was going to ask you too. So, when you're mentoring other veterans, do they come to you, or do you seek them out? And then how is that? How have those interactions been? I guess like, are they? Do you get more skeptical veterans where they're like, "Oh, I'm not too sure about this," or they're like, "I'm super eager to pick your brain, and maybe you can lead me on to help me get in those right paths, make those right connections, and stuff like that."
I don't seek them out as much as I get them referred to me. So I know a
Okay.
lot of people who know that I know people who can help and I know of other programs. So I get a lot of people who will tag me in a post or send me a message of like, hey, I want so and so to connect with you. Is that cool? Or hey, I'm making an introduction. And then yeah, I try to have a chat with them. And then um some of them are hesitant. I think a lot of them are worried that, it's gonna be hard, difficult, or expensive, you know, and a lot of stuff is free. And you
Mm.
just, I think people are skeptical about free. Sometimes free isn't always the greatest thing in the world. And so you kind of have to, find out what they really need and say, yeah, it's not going to cost you anything to call this guy or to make a connection with this guy or to go to this networking event. It's free because it's supposed to be free, not because it's crap. Sometimes free stuff is free for a reason, and then other times it's free because it has true intentions of helping. I think that's where the hesitancy comes in. And then sometimes you have to pay, sometimes you have to pay for a really good resume writer, and sometimes you have to pay, to have a coach who's going to coach you and help you get that dream job. And I think it's just dividing that line and saying, okay, this is understandable, but then you need to understand this and you have to invest in yourself. And that's another thing. Don't try to be cheap and do it the cheapest way possible to achieve this huge, massive goal. You're going to have to invest things in it. And that means time and sometimes money. It's not necessarily the case every time, but
Mhm.
I've met a lot of people who are like, I went and hired a coach or I went and hired a recruiter and, I paid them 800 to $1,000. I got my dream job, you know, I got what I wanted out of it and it paid for itself immediately because they don't just tell you, a lot of companies will offer a base salary, $70,000 a year, but they're willing to pay more. Absolutely. For the right talent. you have to ask. And it's getting the people that can coach you on that and give you the tips and be like, you're worth 80. Ask for it. So, really with my job and my qualifications, I'd really like to be making 78 to 80. And then if they tell you no, what's the worst case? You still accept the job or you tell them no right back, So um it's about getting that and building confidence in people and saying you're going to have to do it's not the old days where you built your resume and then you walked into a job and said, I'd like to apply for a job, and they interviewed you on the spot or they called you a week later and your resume was king, and turning in an application. Companies are doing things differently nowadays, and you have to have a resume for every job you apply for. So now you really got to have like a master resume. Like my master resume is like 20 something pages long because it has everything I've ever done ever on it. And then if I go to apply for a job, I pull pieces off and then I make a 2-page resume. You know what I mean? So I learned that from hiring a coach and from hiring a recruiter and paying to have my resume done and gaining that knowledge. And then I share it with other people and I say, this is how it's done. And some of those same paid services I refer people to today. And I say, hey, it's worth it. I promise you, you need to do it. And you got to invest in yourself. I mean, yeah, it might be $500, but $500 could get you 10,000 more dollars in salary than they were going to offer you. It paid for itself.
That's yeah, that's very true. And it took me a long time to understand that too. Be invested in yourself, confidence. Like until recently, because I just started a new job, and those interview process, I was telling my wife, I was like, that's probably the most confident I've ever been. And a lot of it, they were asking me stuff about when I was in the military too. So it's like the old jobs I've applied for and I'd have those interviews, I was always it's hard to navigate those conversations, or like even very not timid, but nervous to talk about it. Cause I was like, I don't know if they're going to understand.
Yeah.
And if I come off not knowing, exactly how to word it, they're gonna be like, oh, this guy, I mean, look at him. He doesn't even know what he really did when he was in.
Yeah.
But yeah,
He was
having
clean shaven and wore a suit today. What's his problem?
oh yeah, look at this guy show up in freaking shorts and stuff. But yeah, it's super true. I mean, having that confidence, investing in yourself, like you said,
Yeah.
um, those resources are out there. And LinkedIn's been. I've recently joined this like the last year or 2 years or so, and it's been really useful for me. I mean, it's cool because other companies. That's how a lot of companies seem to like search for people too. It seems um, like you said, those days of walking into a store or whatever. Hey, are you guys hiring? Oh, yeah, let me grab a application out of the back. Those days are long gone. I mean,
Yeah.
so a lot of it is you got to have. I feel like I've started to learn is like your resume gets to speak confidence too. Like if they're reading you on paper, you got to sound confident. If you're, oh, I kind of did this, or I, you know, I kind of or manage a small department. And that's it. You don't like I don't know, speak into existence on paper. They're just gonna be like, okay, that's not that important. Like that doesn't jump out and grab you. So
Yeah. Say it with
uh,
confidence on
yeah,
paper and in person. So speak for your service and tell them what you did. And don't worry about if it was 5 people that you managed or if it was 500. You still did it.
exactly.
They can teach a lot. They can train a lot. You don't have to be the perfect applicant. Most of the time, and a lot of times on job applications, you see a job posting and it'll say, 3 to 5 years experience desired. Desired. That's the keyword there is desired. They'll take something else if it's a prime candidate or if you interview well. The perfect person for them is 3 to 5 years. But that's not, for a lot of companies, that's not necessarily what they're going to settle for. They might pick somebody who only has a year, but really blew them away in the interview, showed, tenacity, showed energy, ready to learn, be developed, grow with the company. Those kinds of things speak volumes that you can't put on your resume, but you can show that in person. So, get your resume right and get ready to be interviewed
Mhm.
and do those things because again, you'd be shocked. I think the biggest piece of advice that I give a lot of veterans today is, dude, get the real help. Get the experts to help you prepare your resume, and for the interviews, because the things they're going to teach you are going to separate you from the other candidates. And then it's going to get you thousands of more dollars because you showed up, you impressed them, and you said, well, you know what? I know my worth, and I probably am worth another 6 grand. I'd really like to see this. And the worst thing they can do is say no. And you can also tell them no right back.
And I'm guessing too, when you say like, no, I'm worth more than 6,000, or I'm worth 6,000 more, 10,000 more. You don't say, well, I think I'm actually worth or worth this. You probably want them to say like, no, I'm worth. You guys say that with confidence too. This is what I'm worth. I'm not.
Yeah,
Don't.
I'd really like, with my skills and my abilities, I think I really command a salary of 76,000. I know you're offering 70, but I would really like to, be around 76. I think that I can prove to you that I will be worth $76,000 a year, and that's what I'd like to request. And they can tell you no. But I mean, you have to know that worth inside you, in your head, in your heart. You got to know what you're worth. And that's where a lot of those prime coaches can tell you, you could probably ask for this, or I wouldn't do that. 70 is pretty good for the job, entry level. They're going to give you that advice,
Mhm.
and tell you how to say it. That way you're not coming across as a jerk. Like, I saw the job posting was only 70. Really, it should be like 77 for a guy like me, Yeah, they're going to teach you how to say it right.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. So with that being said, too, I kind of want to transition to your book as well, because yeah, like I said, I'm a I've got about 2.5 chapters into it so far. I guess if you were to go chapters, um, really good stuff so far, and I'm
Thank
kind
you.
of curious, as how this book came to be, because you got the 12 years in the Air Force, you have this government job, you were mentoring other veterans, like you're saying. So is this kind of like, when you decided to write this, is it like a combination of all those experiences manifesting into like this one book?
Yeah, so when I first started writing it, that's kind of how it was like I was trying to capture a lot of my experiences, and then I kind of realized I think I had like 55,000 words written, and I kind of went through it, and I said, this is really just me talking about my story and my
Mhm.
service, and I'm not that interesting. Um, the Navy SEALs and the Rangers and the Green Berets, those are the guys that can talk about their service and is a little more interesting for the general public to pick up on. Nobody's going to read about Jeff Clark and how he did logistics for 12 years. It's not that interesting. Um, Nothing against anybody who does the logistics, and I'm certainly not knocking any of the special ops guys that write their books and tell their stories. I think that's awesome that they do that, and they do have a more interesting story. I mean, I read those books too, so I'm not knocking them. But I kind of just said, I really wanted to write something that gave people value, and I kind of went back to the drawing board. And I'm a business major. I'm getting my doctorate in business right now, and management and leadership of business have always been something that really I'm passionate about. So I kind of went back to the drawing board, and I scrapped like 25 to 30,000 words of that 55,000.
Holy
And
cow!
right around that time, I won the 2019 Air Force Civilian Supervisor of the Year. So huge award, right? And it really was like, it humbled me, but at the same time, kind of like gave me that confidence that, like, okay, maybe I do know what I'm doing. I do know what I'm talking about. It's all obviously been effective and it's worked. And then when I accepted that award, I went back and looked over the awards package, and I read all the things that were in it. And I just said, I didn't physically do 80 to 90% of this. It was the people who worked for me who did great things because we worked well together. And I think I owe them, because they couldn't accept the award. I accepted the award. I got the award. So I kind of said, I really owe all these people, these unspoken people, kind of a debt of gratitude, and they need to get their props. So that's when I really sat down and looked at the book from a different perspective of, I won this award. I got all this great experience because all the awesome people that worked for me. I really need to put that in words and give it out where other people could read this and they could be great as well. So that's when I really kind of put together the leadership algorithm, the effort plus process equals progress, and how you kind of got to things. And the basic real nuts and bolts and the truth of leadership. And that's when the book really developed. And that was like late 2020, early 21. And that's when it really took off and I got the publishing deal and we pressed forward with getting it released. And that's when it released in June of 2022.
Is it kind of surreal too when you get that call from a publisher or whatever, however that transaction it goes down, where they're like, "Oh yeah, we're going to pick up your book. We're gonna produce it." Is that kind of like holy crap moment too? Like, wow, they really liked it. This book is actually coming out. And hopefully it changes somebody's life or perspective on leadership so far. From what I can tell, it's opened my mind up a little bit more onto that aspect of being a manager, as what my title is right now.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
Well,
so
it's kind of it was weird because the publishing industry is a monster. It's you don't realize what kind of monster it really is. And I learned a little bit about the publishing industry and kind of how you did things. And really, to get a big book deal from one of the big five publishers, you have to have an agent. That agent has to represent you. They have to mold you and kind of tailor your book, and then they go give it to publishers and say, "I believe in this. This could sell." And then that's when a publisher picks it up,
okay.
whether it's big or a small publisher. And they're the ones who look for you a deal. Now, granted, you're going to pay a percentage to that agent, so you're giving a percentage to the agent, you're giving a large percentage to the publisher, and you're taking the scraps basically. Um, so when I did it, I went to a lot of agents and I said I really believe in this, and I got a lot of agents that told me no. I got a couple of agents that said I really like it, but uh, nonfiction's a hard genre to get into if you don't have a compelling story,
Mhm.
because you have to be an interesting story or have a really groundbreaking thing, and or have a TED talk that went viral or something like that. You got to have numbers behind a nonfiction book because you're talking about data, life, real things. It's not entertainment. It's value. There's value in it. So value has to be sold and people have to want it, so
Mhm.
I got humbled because I thought I had a good product, and I met an agent. He was like, "Dude, I love your book, but I can't sign you." And I was like,
Oh,
"Oh, okay." I'm like, "Why not?" He's like, "Dude, you don't have enough Twitter followers. Bottom line, you don't have
wow,
enough. You don't have enough on social media to guarantee me sales.
you
You
gotta
put
be kidding me!
dead serious." He said it. He said, "You don't have enough Twitter followers. You have to have
Wow.
a following to do nonfiction." He's like, "You just have to. Right now, you'd maybe sell 20 books." He's like,
So
"I
that's
can't
what they
do that."
want, is for you to have kind of already a platform. So then
Yeah.
when you do release something, everybody's eager to read it because they know who you are already,
Yeah,
or
that they because
listen to it.
they only get paid if you sell books. So if they're gonna do all this work to get you signed and to get your book released, and they don't get paid if you sell 20 books. That's a double quarter pounder from McDonald's type of paycheck is all they're getting. And that's not worth their time because they're trying to make money. And I get it. I understand it. I don't like it, but I understood it. And that's when I just kept going though. Okay, well, for a long time I was bitter and I was like, I don't need a damn agent. I'm just going to do this myself. And I'll hire a lawyer if I have to look over a contract and I'll save the money.
Mhm.
So um, I eventually found a couple small publishers and I kicked it around to them. And a lot of them said they liked it, but they were backlogged and to keep writing and to come back later. And then one of them called me out of the blue and said, "Hey, I went and had a beer with them. I was in Colorado Springs and I went and had a beer with them." And he's like, "Man, when you're done with your book, send it my way. We'll look at it again and we'll really go from there because I love your idea." And I didn't get back to him 4 or 5 months later. I hadn't done anything yet, and I was just kind of taking my time. And he called me and said, "Hey, we're looking over submissions right now. Were you planning on submitting anything?" And I was like, "No, not really done yet. I don't. It's not in a place where I would like to give it and show it to people." He's like, "I don't care. Send me the first 30 pages." He's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna send you the submission template that we use. Fill it out. Send me the first 30 pages. I don't care what it looks like." I was like, "Oh man, I think he's just forcing me to do it because I don't know." Um, So I took a week. I sent him something, and he replied back like a week later over the phone and was like, "Dude, I love your book. Love the idea. We're gonna get you an editor." So he's like, "Don't sweat that." He's like, "But I'm sending over a contract now. Look it over and tell me what you think." And that was it.
That is crazy.
Yeah, but
'Cause
I
I
got
didn't
told
know it was,
no probably 3 dozen times.
I had no clue it was that, I guess, that like in depth and just like hoping something happens. I mean, because you can write a masterpiece, and then if nobody wants to pick it up, it's like, God, I got to be kind of mentally like devastating, even like you said, humbling and stuff like that. But yeah, so far it's really good. I've liked it a lot. The whole, because you always hear when you brought up the Michael Jordan part in there. I don't want to give away too much of what's in there, so people can pick it up and read it. But I always that when you say like Michael Jordan always asks of his teammates the same, he won't ask them to do anything that he won't do himself.
Mhm.
I remember I had a second class pay officer that told me one time. He said, "If to be a good leader, you have to be a great follower." And
Absolutely.
I still say that to people today. That's one of those things that's like embedded in my brain forever. And I've had those jobs too, even outside where I'm sure a lot of people have these jobs. You're working your way up the ranks in the company, and then you get to the top or to a position where you have some authority. And you want to be grateful for it, but you also want to treat those guys that are now working their way up, those guys and gals, like, hey, I'll help you get to where I'm at. Cause that's always my mindset, as well as like I'm trying to take my boss's job. I hope he knows that, and I hope he's trying to take his boss's job. So at the same time, we're all helping each other get to those next plateaus, those new goals, those new positions, those new pay brackets. Um, that's what I've taken away from it so far, especially like the whole aspect of being a manager versus being a leader.
Mhm.
'Cause there's certain, I mean, I've in the civilian world, there's tons of managers at least. Not to be
Yeah.
mean to civilians or like just the everyday person, there are some power hungry people, and once get that manager title, holy cow, they flip. And sometimes you've known them since they were in the bottom of the barrel, and then they get it, and they're just like screw everybody down the bottom. Anybody that helped me get here that's still technically underneath me. It's like, wow, what happened? Like you're nobody's going to follow you, nobody's going to listen to you. And you ask somebody to do something, they're going to mumble behind you when you're walking away. And kind of like in the movie, is that The Office, is that what it's called? I can't remember what it is, but when he's like, oh, I need those TPS reports. Can't remember what the hell the movie's called. But I always think of that too. It's like you want to be a good leader, you want to set
Yeah.
clear clear structures and in place. And if somebody needs help, always be willing to help them out. And that's so far I've taken away from it. And like I said, I'm heading in that direction. I've been in managerial roles lately, the last like 5 or 6 years, and it's super true. I mean, there's times where even if you're a good leader, you take it for granted and you become kind of a douche, so to speak. You start treating people kind of bad, and you
Yep.
lose sight of it, and then you get humbled and like, wait, what am I doing? Um, yeah, I love that part of it so
So
far.
many times so many times, managers are so concerned with being right that they can't see when they're wrong,
Mm.
and they can't see that they're actually causing more harm than good because they're so concerned about being right. And there's such a humbleness about being wrong, you know. It can do we're so scared of being wrong, but we don't realize the power in being wrong. The best moments I've had in my career as a leader, as a manager, was admitting when I screwed up and seeing the look on everybody's faces when they were like, this guy just admitted to messing up. He's the boss. Like, he's not supposed to be wrong, you know? It's like, no, I was wrong. I had a bad call on that one, or I missed it, not perfect. That's a different level of respect that you cannot buy. You cannot, ingrain in there. Like, you have to only do that by being transparent. And um, I've met managers like what you described, man. The people who are just like, I'm a big damn deal. You know, I'm important, damn it. And they just walk around, and say, well, okay, maybe you are, but nobody's gonna care. Nobody's gonna
And
care because you don't have no value.
the sad thing is, I've noticed those same individuals are like that. At least specifically in the last industry I was in, it was kind of a construction supply industry. It's like even their bosses won't take them serious because they know they're just spewing crap just to spew crap. It's like you just want to talk just to talk, and you're not really making change. You're bringing solutions to the table. You're just jibber jabbing, and nobody's going to listen to that. And that's not a good look either. And I've noticed that a lot. I guess like post COVID, or especially specifically this year, even with all the inflations and all these things going on, they're cutting. Like my last job, they're cutting all the production guys, but then it's like, how come you're not making sales? How come you're not doing this? And it's one of those things. Well, it's like if you were a good hands-on manager, you would realize we need those people to for us to succeed. We need those guys to make things so we can sell things. If we don't have anybody that's making anything, we're not going to sell anything. You need to like take that information and carry that over to your boss, and he'll carry that to his boss, and so forth. So now it's like, hey, we might need to bite the bullet and pay for 3 more production workers, but know what that's going to
Yeah.
turn into? That's going to turn to another $100,000 worth of profit potentially, whatever it may be.
But it's
And
been proven, and plenty of companies have done it, that they've shown that they've spent money in the right areas and it paid off.
mhm,
You know, they cut a whole production day out of the week and sent their employees home. So instead of 5 production days, they were working 4 production days. But those 4 production days were producing what 7 production days would normally, which is way more than doing 5 full-time days,
mhm.
or, hiring another person. But the problem with a lot of leaders and a lot of managers is they try to throw money at it and say, well, I'm going to hire you more people. That's not what we need. We need efficiency. We need
Mm.
these little things so we can do our job. We need morale, and then need those things, So as a leader, as a manager, you owe it to your people to listen openly. And I think one of the biggest problems I've ever seen was a leader or a manager who didn't listen. And so the complaints, and they say things like, "Well, I want to hear what you guys have to say. I want to know. You guys can talk to me openly. How about open door policy?" And then they do. And then people say the right things to them and they go, okay, cool, noted. And then they go off and do something else. I just hired you guys a new marketing person. So now marketing has 2 people. Well, we don't need that on the sales floor.
Yeah.
That's not what we needed. You fixed a problem by creating another problem or putting a band-aid on it. Don't do that. It doesn't need a band-aid. It needs a weld. It needs to be sewn up. It needs to be solid. So you got to listen to people when they talk and not be afraid to invest in the right places and make a change. And people are afraid to change. And if you're afraid to change, you're afraid of being successful. That's kind of the bottom line.
That's very true. And yeah, it's speaking of like change. Yeah, change is one of those things where I've seen um like the older generation of folks really push back against, because they're set in their ways. They're like, hey, this is how we've done it for 20 years. We don't need a new system. And then they get the new system, they don't even want to try to use it. They don't want to any part of it. And it's like, well, man, if you actually just sat back and like took a deep breath and utilize this new system, you'd realize it's so more efficient
Yeah. But
than
here's
what
the
you've
other thing.
ever been doing.
I don't want to hear you complain when you have a brand new iPhone in your pocket because you're willing to change to a new system.
Hmm.
You've done it. I've seen you do it. You used to have a rotary phone, and then you had a cordless phone, and now you have a smartphone, and you have the newest smartphone, which tells me you've had previous smartphone models. So I don't want to hear you complain about a new system. I know you're capable of doing it. You just want to complain to complain. So in today's world, we have no room for it, honestly. You know, change is happening faster than when we can keep up with it.
Oh
So
yeah.
if you can't change, you are going to get left behind. And I think a lot of employers and leaders are having to to be change managers in such with such urgency that it's hard to sit down and focus and do what you just said. I sit down with a group of employees and say, "Hey, let me show you the good things. Let me show you how this is going to help you do your job." And they don't do that because they're not listening in the first place. All they're hearing is their employees complain and whine and cry. And they're saying, "Well, I gave you a new system. It fixes the problems." You're not taking the time to make it value added for anybody. So they're not going to understand because you've given them no reason to. You've just told them, "I give you a system. Stop your complaining." you know,
Exactly.
you can't put a band-aid on things and expect it to be a permanent fix. It's not going to happen like that.
And that's where it gets like being an effective leader, I'd imagine, and being somebody that reports or that's underneath that individual, where that can get kind of frustrating, even for say if you are a good leader, you just do that and they don't want to listen. But you also got, I think, a good leader would put themselves in that individual's shoes too. Like they're 75 years old and they're like, oh my god, like this is the third system we've had in the last 25 years. It's like, great, now we're having another one. Well, put yourself in in their shoes for a second and just say,
Yeah.
hey, I get you've been through freaking all these different things, but let me take you, or like you said, take the time, walk you through these new things, these new steps, um, and you'll find out it's going to be a lot better for you in the long run.
Well, and they
Uh,
say, that old saying of you're only as good as your weakest link. If you're
mhm,
not listening to what the janitor has to say, then you're not in touch. So um, just because they're a janitor doesn't mean they don't have good things to say. They might have great ideas. You know, why are you casting them out because they're the janitor? Why are you casting them out because they're the oldest employee in the company? Why are you assuming that they're stuck in their ways? They might have had great ideas, but they're so used to management telling them to shut up, that they don't express their opinion anymore.
mhm,
So how do you buy that back? How do you earn that back? How do you listen to that effectively to where it actually means something and it has a value to it? So I think that's where a lot of people goof up and they mess up nowadays is because they try to do what they think is best, but they don't listen to the people who need the change. So
mhm.
they do change for the sake of change sake, and then you're still back to square one. Okay, you gave us, you know, another bologna sandwich to work with. We didn't want a bologna sandwich, man. We wanted, turkey on rye or whatever it may be. Like, quit giving us, we said it in the military, quit giving me a shit sandwich.
Yeah.
Give me something to work with, you know? So to be effective, you have to do those things. You have to listen and then provide a quality response, not just a response and say, I did it, guys. I checked the box.
Mhm,
Okay. We don't like you any more than we did 5 minutes ago. Because you're not helping. You're not adding any value to me. And that's the greatest quality that you have as a leader, as a manager, is your job is to provide value.
mhm.
Because if your employees and your folks don't do their job and do it well, they look bad, but other really good managers are going to look at you and go, "This is your fault." I had a marketing director one time who could constantly blame her employees. And I looked at her and said, "This is your fault. You're their boss. You're their leader, their mentor, their teacher. If they're not doing their job right, this is your fault.
It's a reflection
It's a
of
reflection of
her.
you.
Yeah.
You're not leading them." A good leader does not blame their followers. They take ownership of it and then they turn around to their followers and say, "Hey guys, we have to be better. Here's how we're going to do it." Or what do you think? That's different. But when you just look at it and go, "Well, they didn't do their job." I know. Why didn't you make sure that they did their job? Why didn't you make sure that you gave them the tools? This is your fault. You have to take accountability. And people who do, that's the difference between leaders and managers. That's the big difference. Leaders can take accountability. They'll know when to say, "This is my fault. I screwed up. We're going to fix this together." And they don't let we be a hollow word. They
Mhm.
understand the importance of we. So when they say we, it means something. It's not hollow.
I believe you even say like something about being a good leader also is like finding your purpose. Like you need to have a purpose or something along those lines, if I remember correctly. Um, what's your purpose as a leader? What are you trying to accomplish? Stuff like that. Because it could be egotistical being a manager and stuff like that. There's definitely those individuals. And and I want to open up the book because I can't remember exactly what it was, but there was like the three things that I think you tied into that. That you said, like, you notice when you go to a website, is like, what does it say? What's the message? Is
Oh
it,
yeah,
is it catch your eye? Do you know exactly what it is right away when you see it? So then you
yeah,
get more interested, um, and you
yeah. I
apply
think
that to your leadership.
I can't remember it now either, and I wrote it, but yeah, basically those three key things, like what is it, what's the purpose of it, and how can they buy from you? So when you
Yeah.
go to a website, it should say those things. Um, what are those three things? Because if you go to a website and it looks disorganized and you're not really sure what the purpose is, how long are you going to stick around? But if you go to a website that says, "Hey, I sell clothes. Ooh, look, here's a discount. Add to your cart immediately," then people will. Same thing with Amazon. I can go to Amazon, I can Google what I want, and I can hit one button and I can buy it, add it to my cart, and then I can buy it. That's the most
Mhm.
simplest. It doesn't take a lot of mind and effort and brain power to do it. If I want to buy a 50-pound bag of potatoes, I can go to Amazon, I can put that in the search bar, and then I get options. And I can find the best price. I can hit add to cart, and then I'm done.
Shoot, now you
That's
can even do buy now. Like, you can skip the whole add to cart. Like, they've.
Yeah. It's a simple process, and that's why business is good. But that's the same thing as being a leader and a manager.
Mhm.
If they look at you and they question things, they're spending time worrying about that as opposed to, well, they could be spending time doing their job well because they already know the answers. I know what this guy's about. I know what he expects of me, and I know exactly what I need to get out of or her, him or her,
Yeah.
and they know that. They know how to buy from you. They know the importance. They know what they get. It's that simple.
And it's very true because when I think about it, it's like, what do you do? Um, what can you do to make their life better? And how do they buy from you? I've experienced that where, like, we've had a new manager come in, maybe from outside the company or whatever it may be, or a different branch, and I've had this happen one time, and he brought in the entire sales staff one at a time. He's just like, okay, what are your concerns? What are things you think could be improved on? And it was like a good 30-minute, hour long conversation, somewhere in that ballpark. And he's taking notes. I remember he was just sitting there and he's writing everything down. He was really listening. And some of those things that I know I talked about and my gripes about, like, past management, like how things were, he did change. Like, those things did start to take effect slowly, but you could start seeing it happen. And I remember some of us were talking, we're like, wow, that means he went up to his boss and he's like, hey, this is what my team's saying needs to change. If you guys can't do it, and then that sucks. I'm gonna have to tell them, no, this they're not gonna let me do it. But he fought for us, and those little things that we requested actually happened, or those little gripes that were like, oh, this isn't working that well. We would like to have something like this. Okay, well, that now that's in place, and now we're happy. We're, like you said, the morale of the team's going up because now we have somebody that will fight for us.
Yeah.
So, and in turn, you'll work your ass off for that person because they're busting their ass in those closed door meetings for you.
Yep.
And so, more often than not, that's not the case at all. And so when that's I've only had that happen to me one time in the civilian world, and it's been really something I've really drawn even now as I start furthering in my career. It's like, man, when I get into these new roles where I'm leading teams, that's the same thing I do. I always bring them in. Hey, how's it been the last? I'm new here. How's it been? How long have you been here? Oh, you've been here for 5 years, and you've had two different managers. Well, what are the issues? What can be fixed? What are your opinions? Are there things that, like, when you're doing something, or do you feel confident in that decision you're making, or do you question it? Because if you're confident in it, just do it. Like, I told one person that the other day. It's like, if you're confident in it, if like he was telling me, he's like, oh, I'm not sure. It's like, just do it. Like, what's the worst that's going to happen? I want to come back and just say, no, this is how it should look, and I'll show you what my expectation is, and now But I want to see where you're at first. I want to see how confident you are
Yeah.
in your decision making. Um, and man, I'm telling you right now, I'm learning these things because I'm new into these roles, and that's why one of the reasons I was really excited to get your book too. I was like, man, this is cool. I was reading the reviews, like, this is really going to help me. Um, but yeah, it's it's a lot, and at the same time it's simple. I feel like so far being a manager slash leader, it's only as hard as you make it. If you don't have,
Yeah.
if you're not open to suggestions, or listening to those people that work for you, you're going to
Mm.
struggle tremendously.
Oh, sure.
um, and that's, I think, the biggest takeaway for me so far is in this going further in my career is to listen, be a better listener. You can't fix everything, but
No.
you can
Yeah.
try. You could try to fix everything. I'll take a win over nothing. So,
And prioritize the right things.
mhm,
Don't try to do everything at once, or um, don't try to tackle the big rock first and ignore all the little things. And then, because what happens if you fall? 'Cause failure is, you know, it's going to happen. You're going to fail. Um, so if you fail at the one big thing that you really tried to do, you're gonna get looked at by your people as a failure, and they're gonna say, "You wasted all this time doing nothing."
yeah,
So do some small things and prioritize and work your way up to those big things. And then you'll have proof in the process and say, I've done these little things. We've improved this, we've improved that. So then when you go to tackle the big thing, you might not have that much to tackle because you've proven to people who are the investors that, when I say I need $100,000 worth of equipment, but I've increased production steadily over the last 2 years, we've fixed all these little issues, and we're one of the most efficient and well performing departments in a company.
mhm,
$100,000 does drop in a bucket. You know, you've changed the perspective. Now you're in charge of the narrative, and that's different as opposed to, "Oh, I need $100,000 to do this." Why? You haven't fixed anything. You got your department's still crap. You're not performing well, and there's more problems than there are anything else. So prior having your priorities set is a big deal, and you can become more efficient by just doing those little things. And then when you want to ask for something big, you can do it. And I've seen it. I've consulted for some companies that had that exact problem, and they were like, "Well, we really don't feel comfortable doing it for them, but we would do it for so and so if they would get their act together." I was like, "Why?" Well, because we know if they fix these things, look at the dividends it would pay. Look at the payout. $100,000 would be a drop in the bucket. It wouldn't matter
yeah,
nothing at all. We'd make that money back in 6 months. It's a worthy investment. But their hesitation is not in writing the check. Their hesitation is in the return on investment because they know they won't get it because the manager or the leader in the department just don't have their things together. So, that's a big piece of advice is, prioritize things and chip away at them and consistently chip away at them and be persistent, and that will pay off.
yeah. Because I'm kind of curious too. Then, in your experience, do you see more of um, like the good leadership, like individuals out there? Do you see the latter? Where they are like that, where they're hesitant to uh, give new things to, or invest in a team, or invest in new equipment, because they're like, man, that team is just managed like absolute trash. So if we do that, yeah, we can buy them the fanciest new gadget in the world, but they're just going to not use it, or they won't use it. They'll break it. They'll do something, and I mean, we can't trust them with it. And then, do you see more of, in your experience, that side of it more than the good side of, I guess, things?
Yeah, but then my question always to them is, well, if you're hesitant, what have you done to fix that?
Hmm.
You don't trust them. You wouldn't trust them with this piece of equipment or changing this process. What are you doing to fix that? Have you talked to this leader or this manager about what the issues are that you see? Have you collaborated at all? Because it might be a discussion away from being fixed because you're
Yeah.
not on the same page. So you're not investing in your company because you're afraid to have a conversation. Okay, we got to go back to the drawing board here because if there's a problem and there's a problem and you're not communicating the problem, nobody's coming up with solutions. Nobody's talking. So you're afraid to spend money or invest, but you haven't done anything to make the situation better. So um, I've seen it a lot. I've seen it in some companies, but I've also seen companies that have invested in things and then and just totally flubbed it up because they they thought investing the money or the time was the solution. So, well, there's a whole lot more to it than that. And if you have a bad process, you can't invest money into it and think it's going to magically fix itself. No, it's still going to be a bad process. It's just going to have 100,000 more dollars to screw up. You know, you can't, again, you can't put a band-aid on it and expect it to be a permanent fix. So go
Mhm.
back and say, hey, we need to fix these little things before we invest this kind of money in it, but we're ready to do it, but we got to be rock solid beforehand. And then you got to be a part of the solution. You can't just point it out and say, well, there's a problem there. And now you guys know there's a problem. I know there's a problem. You know that I know. So go fix it. No, you got to be collaborative. And then when you invest money and you invest time, it's value added.
Mhm. And this like kind of like a quick change of subject. I guess it's the same, but I guess changing a little bit. Um, what I've what I'm starting to pick up too, even just from our conversation, from what I read, like a lot of this even applies to being a parent. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
a parent as a parent, you are a leader because I mean, like my wife's a teacher, and I hear these stories, and I'm just like, man, their parents sound like they're non-existent. No accountability. You hear I mean, you hear this stuff all the time where kids are just going like completely crazy and in classrooms, and you see it when you're at the restaurants or shopping, and it's like there's no accountability there to it at all. Not to say that who knows how they actually parent, but um, I think a lot of being a good leader also applies to being a good parent because you set those boundaries, you listen to your kid, you communicate. Um, so often today too, they just a lot of parents just throw a tablet or some type of screen in front of their kid, so it doesn't really fix a problem. It just
Yeah.
numbs it, like you said. It's a band-aid. It's like buying the fancy piece of equipment, but no reason why to that individual. So now they're just getting it. They're like, "Oh, cool, thanks," and then okay, but then you turn it off or the battery dies, and you're right back to where you were before you gave it to them. So I'm
Yeah.
just,
You're spot on. It is. Yeah, being a leader is not having a title. It's being situational
mhm,
and knowing, you know, you have to be a leader in this. I'm a different leader when I walk into my house and I'm talking to my kids as when I'm talking to my wife.
mhm,
I lead her in a different method in which I lead my kids, and I lead all of them in a different method in which I lead people at work, and I lead veterans that I mentor differently than all of them. So it's not about the title of dad or husband or veteran or boss. It's about the situation. How are you leading within the situation and giving back? The needs of the individual or group or whatever that is requesting something of you. What are you value? What are you giving that is value added?
yeah, because that investment into your kids is like this is kind of the same, I guess, as you're investing into, like you said, in the military. You have that influx of people in and out. You're investing in that E1, that E2, that E3, because they're the future. Your kids are the future as well. You're investing in them to hopefully one day be a better. I always say be a better person than I am. So they're continuously improving, becoming better people. So when you're older, God, hopefully they take care of you. They don't just like, oh yeah, thanks dad or mom, whatever. You
Yeah.
guys were assholes, so we're never going to talk to you again. But it's kind of the same thing, but like you said, a different realm of life. And equally, not equally important, maybe the same to some people. I mean, there's different levels of value and importance to that, but
Hmm.
um, yeah, that's just like from the first few chapters I've really read. That's stuff I'm already thinking. I was like, because I was thinking about this today actually. I was reading a little bit more of it. I was like, I could take it at face value, just saying, oh yeah, this is how you become a good leader and all this stuff, and okay, that's cool. But man, there's more to it if you really sit and think about it. You're a leader, like you said, at your house. You lead different with each individual within your family.
Yeah.
Um, and vice versa at work and mentoring people as well. So, um, yeah, so far I really love the book,
Well,
and
thanks, man.
I really appreciate everything you've done, and like we talked about. I mean, what you're doing for veterans, and um, especially that. I mean, that's the whole aura of this podcast is veteran driven stuff. So it's awesome to hear how you're taking your experiences and you're bringing it back full circle and helping those new individuals that are in that transition phase as well. So
I appreciate it, man. Yeah, I was, you know, I learned earlier on that you can choose like kind of two different paths in life, and you can be helpful or you can be hurtful, and there's no sense in I'm a successful guy on my own, just on my own merit, my own education, my own experiences. I'm a successful guy on my own. So what do I need to be pushing people out of my way for? I didn't get successful by doing that. I got successful by being me. So why wouldn't I want to give back and help people do that? Because it's not a selfish thing, I didn't get where I'm at by only thinking of me as number one. So why would in my other time I put myself number one when I could be helping other people? And I got where I'm at by doing just that. So it's the recipe for success. Why wouldn't I be sharing it? Some people might think differently. That's fine. That's your prerogative. You want to stay at home and watch Netflix all night and you just want to be you, that's cool. That's not me. I don't like to do that. I like to answer the phone when people call. I like to help out. I like to give back for no reason at all, you know, um, just because it's the right thing to do. And, I love other veterans. I don't got to know who you are to know if you're a veteran, you're my brother, you're my sister. What can I do to help you? It's unconditional.
yeah, like that's very true. I mean, and it's like talking about how we did earlier, starting to see more of these charities, organizations, and stuff really come up. I'm not sure if they've been around for a long time because man, I feel like it's the last 5 years or so they've really just like been launching off. But it's nice to see, and I've told everybody it's like even having veterans like yourself and talking to you, it's like owning it, becoming outspoken, becoming a voice because it seems like there was nothing for so long. There was every veteran was kind of out for just scattered around the country and just trying to figure it out on their own.
Yeah.
But now I think so many veterans have done that, and then they become successful personally, like you were saying, and they're looking back, they're like, damn, I could really benefit somebody potentially, even if they take a little snippet of what I'm telling them and then get some other information from another person. I mean, you get different opinions and formulate your own opinion and thought process is just as important.
Yeah.
And I think we're seeing this huge wave of that really happening, like in the late 2000s here. Like it's really starting to pick up, and it's exciting to see. Um, yeah, veterans just openly telling people what they've gone through, whether it's been good, bad, anything in between, not being afraid or ashamed to speak their truths, because I think that's been one of those things so many veterans have been
Yeah.
cautious of, not sharing or wanting to, maybe I'm not sure if it's like come off as weak or,
Yeah. Being afraid
or
of being judged, you know?
being judged, yeah,
Yeah.
correctly. Yeah,
Especially
that's
when it came to we could probably talk on it all day long, but PTSD, anxiety, depression, and all that. The
Mhm.
minute somebody brings it up, it's like, oh, you have PTSD? Yeah, I do. I've been through some shit. you know,
Mhm.
it's okay. In a way, you're supposed to have it. You've been through some traumatic things. That's why they call it post traumatic stress. So or the military gave you anxiety, or you're feeling depressed because you're no longer in the military and your life has changed and been thrown upside down. I get it. Those are not bad words. You
Mhm.
know, we got to talk about them. I was diagnosed with anxiety. I was not the same when I got out of the military and all these injuries limited the way I'm doing things. I'm 39 years old. I've been out of the military for 5 years. I've had injuries for the last 12. I'm not the same person. I'm not capable of the same things. I had to get over that. I had to talk to people. I had to embrace the anxiety of it and find works around. So it's not don't be afraid of being judged. I mean, I was for the longest time, and I finally got some help, and I finally realized, oh, there's tons of people out there just like me. I'm not the only one, and there's these things are are kind of solvable. You can work around them. You can adjust your life, and you can talk to the experts and get somewhere with it. You don't have to be sitting here going, "Oh man, I'm never
Mhm.
going to contribute," or I'm afraid that when I say PTSD, people are going to look at me like I'm some psycho or something like that. It's like, listen, if people are looking at you when you say, "Yeah, I'm in combat, I got PTSD," blah blah blah, and people look at you like you're a psycho, you don't need them in your life.
Yep.
You need people who are going to look at you and go, "Okay, man, I got you. I got anxiety, you know,
Yep.
I got this or I got that. I got that going on. I'm riding the boat with you, man. We're paddling down the stream, together." Those are the people you need in your life.
Exactly. And then I think I know I've said before for myself, it felt like it was going to be a burden if I shared what I was going through with other people. That's I think a lot of veterans deal with that as well. Like you don't want to say how you feel because you feel like it might burden like a loved one, a friend, a family member, whatever it is. But as I've gotten older and talked to other veterans and friends that were in the military that I still talk to, and they're like, yeah, I told my wife or husband, this is what I'm going through, and they like open up. They're like, okay, that's cool. I understand. Like I'm here for you. It doesn't mean I'm leaving. If you're going through something, we're going to get through it together.
Yeah, those are the
Instead of
people you need in your life.
bottling it up. Yeah, instead of bottling it up, and it just gets worse. It doesn't benefit anybody. And you hear these stories where they don't share or they don't express what they're going through, and then they end up getting divorced or been divorced like 5, 6 times. It's like, dude, you just gotta be honest with yourself first, too. That's like the first step in everything here is look in the mirror, be honest with yourself, and say, okay, this is what I'm going through. This is how I'm going
Hmm.
to handle it. I'm going to tell this person first,
Yep.
like you know, and go from there. Because, like you said, a lot of people that negative, like or notion with it, or is not really there anymore. People are like, okay, how can we help?
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of people who do need help, man. They just need to feel comfortable having honest conversations. And there's a lot of people out there that can help and they're judgment free. I don't judge anybody. You can call me and say, "Man, I'm addicted to drugs. I need help with this, that, and the other." I'm not going to sit here and grill you over it. I'm going to tell you drugs are bad. You better stop it. But I'm going to help you out. I'm going to help you get some help. You know, it's better to just be open and honest and say, because everybody's wrong. Everybody's been wrong at some point in time. Everybody's failed. Um, I've done things that I don't take pride in and I'm not proud of, or I wish I would have done differently, but everybody's done that. So,
Mhm.
um, if you're worried about being wrong and trying to make sure people aren't judging you for being wrong or whatever, you're going to spend a whole lot of time spinning your wheels when you could say, "Listen, I'm not the greatest human, but I need some help. I've got my flaws. I've got my skeletons in my closet. I haven't been the greatest individual. Doesn't mean I can't change and be better. I need help to do that. And there's a lot of people out there that can help. So don't don't hide your feelings, man. Don't hide your service. Don't hide your flaws, and just and look for genuine relationships. If people don't want to listen or judge you for who you are, then you don't need them in your life.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you can hear it, man. She's going crazy back
Yeah.
there.
I can hear it.
Oh man, yeah, she has a set of lungs. Um, but yeah, you're really that's spot on. And I think what I've noticed and something I've done with my friends that are just recently got out of the military, even friends I made while I was in, and they're stayed in a little bit longer. Um, that same thing. Hey, if you're ever going through anything, I've probably been through it myself, man. Like I'm here for you, and I think that's like we've talked about at this stage in the game or with veterans and like technology as like elder veterans, we're older than a lot of the veterans now. They're getting out there probably in their early 20s. We've gone through it. We've had these experiences, and that's one of the main things I'm hoping with my podcast specifically too is that a veteran, a young one, older one, whatever, they come on here and they listen to a couple episodes or an episode and they're like, wow, this is really resonating with me because I'm going through this right now or I've gone through it. And that's what it should be. Like we're here for each other. You're not alone. Like you said, be proud to be a veteran. Own it.
Mhm.
It's a badge you should wear with a lot of pride and honor. You earned it. You signed up for it. Your family. I've always said hats off to everybody's family as well because they go through it whether I mean they don't put on the boots and the uniform, but they go through those deployments just as bad, emotionally. So
Yep. Certainly tough on them for sure.
mhm. So yeah, again, thank you so much for coming on, Jeff. Let's see, I was going to put this on here. So if anybody that ends up watching this on YouTube, here's his website right here, and this has your podcast on there. I believe your links to your Amazon where your book is and stuff like that as well. Correct?
Yeah. JeffClarkOfficial.com. You can go on there. I got the social media. I got the podcast. I got the book. You can hit up the store and get an autographed copy of the book. You can get an always forward T-shirt. You can get a coin, whatever you want to do, man. Or you can just go on there and listen to the podcast. I got some of my media appearances like this on there. So yeah, one-stop shop, JeffClarkOfficial.com.
All right, yeah. And here's the book for everybody that's watching. I think you have one behind you too.
Yep,
Book is so far freaking awesome. Love it.
right there.
It's hard to freaking read it because every time I try to read it, though, my son jumps in the bed and I'm like, "Oh, come on, dude! I'm just give me like 5 minutes, man. Give me 5 minutes." But yeah, thank you so much, Jeff. Yeah, I can't wait to read more and hopefully put out some more books because I like what I'm reading so far. So
Yes, sir. Thanks, man. I appreciate you.
thank you. Thank you.
See you.